Hi everyone, and welcome back to Effective Leadership Strategies in the Workplace. So today we're going to talk about self-awareness and how it is a critical leadership competency. If you've joined me before, you know leadership competency is a set of skills, attitudes, beliefs, and actions that contribute to superior performance in your role as a leader, or a more effective performance in your role as a leader. So we're going to talk about how self-awareness is actually a critical leadership competency. Self-awareness is our ability to monitor our inner world and its impact on our external world. So when we talk about inner world, we're really thinking about four major domains: the cognitive domain, social domain, emotional domain, and physical domain. So let's talk about what those domains are. The cognitive domain really focuses on how we think, how we process feelings and thoughts, how we believe others perceive us, our inner thoughts, and our perceptions. It's cognitive, right? It's how the brain is functioning, how the brain is processing information. Emotional domain is how we feel about something, how others make us feel, how we're impacted by that. The physical domain is how those emotions and how what's happening cognitively impacts us physically. Do you feel anxious before a big meeting or a big presentation? Are you worried? Maybe an upset stomach, maybe you're nauseous, maybe you have a headache, or you're fatigued all of a sudden and can't really figure out why. Well, that's your physical domain kind of moving into overdrive. And then your social domain really focuses on how you're interacting with others. It's focusing on intrapersonal communication, which is the self-talk. Right? Am I ready? Why was I chosen to do this? Am I the right person for this? It also focuses on interpersonal communication. So that communication, which is really taking place between you and someone else. It's the give and take, it's the feedback, it's the listening, it's that interpersonal communication, or communication between two or more people. Self-aware people are aware of how this internal experience and how these domains in effect impact how we interact and engage with our teams, with our supervisors, and with other people in our workspace. Self-awareness is not a singular event. It's not a one-time thing and, I got it, I'm completely self-aware. Every time you have a situation at work that may be a stressor, and remember, stressors can be both positive and negative, right? You can have positive stressors like what you might experience if you're planning a wedding, or maybe getting ready to have a baby, or you're getting ready for a promotion. It can also be a negative stressor. Maybe you're going to have a difficult conversation with one of your team members. Maybe you're going to have a tough conversation with a supervisor because you're being held accountable for something. Maybe you're getting ready to have a difficult conversation with a client, or do a big presentation. You don't quite feel that you're fully prepared or you're ready for that. Self-awareness requires continual objective reflections. So here's the thing: when you're in an emotional state, when you're in a stressful state, that's not the period that you're really engaged in the self-awareness practice. It's when you're outside of that, so you can objectively look at the reasons for the emotions and for the feelings that are happening, throughout the domains, versus, the actual emotions themselves. So you're looking at the reasons you experienced those emotions, the way your body responded the way that it did, and caused you or impacted how you interacted with your external world. You're looking at the reasons for those emotions and not the actual emotions themselves. And being once removed from the actual situation allows you to take that objective approach. So I want you to think for just a moment about how a stressful situation can, then your domains are going, how that stressful situation can impact how you interact with others and negatively impact your leadership. So let's say you have a difficult employee and they're walking down the hallway and they're coming to your office, they're coming into your space, and that's going to take time away from you preparing for this important project or this important deadline that you have. Well, immediately what starts to happen is you either start to feel frustration, or that intrapersonal communication starts. You start with that self-talk. Okay, how long is this going to be? Do I really need to address this right now? Maybe your stomach's a little bit upset, or a little bit anxious about what you're going to be confronted with by this employee. Maybe you're thinking about, how am I going to interact with this employee? And when the employee actually comes into your workspace to talk with you, you're already in a state yourself. Okay, maybe your facial expression has changed, maybe your body expression has changed, and maybe that's going to impact how you deal with that employee. Maybe you have a shorter or more curt response when the employee is addressing a particular situation with you. Maybe you're cutting them off. Maybe you're not being as responsive or receptive to what they're saying to you. You're not fully actively engaged and listening to them because intrapersonal, you've got this other stuff going on that you need to prepare for. When that particular situation is over, you need to consider how that employee felt when they left your space. Did you win in that interaction? Did you lose in that interaction? I will tell you, you lost some footing in that interaction, because if that employee feels like you weren't paying attention, you weren't being an authentic listener, an engaged and receptive listener, an active listener, you weren't fully focused on what it was that was happening in front of you, then that's a loss for you. It's a step back in terms of building that trust and building that relationship that you need with your team members. So when you're removed from that situation, that's the time that you really want to practice those strategies to build that self-awareness so you can be a more effective leader moving forward. You think about, how did my brain react to that? What was going through my head when I saw that employee walking down the hallway, or that employee said, I need to speak to you in a few moments? How did that make me feel emotionally? Was I concerned that this was going to be a long, drawn-out conversation, or was I concerned about the employee's response? Was it going to be emotional? Was it going to be angry? What was I thinking about? Maybe past interactions with this employee. How are you processing this? And that impacts how the world sees you and how you interact with others. So I want to tell you about something called thought stoppers. Thought stoppers are tools, strategies, objects that are used to interrupt a negative train of thought. Thought stoppers are used to refocus your thinking. It stops you in your tracks, and it's used to refocus your thinking so you can realign and self-correct and then address the situation as needed and change your impact on that external experience. You have to remember that thoughts impact feelings, right? In those 4 domains. Feelings in turn impact actions. So thoughts impact feelings, feelings in turn impact actions. Now, I had a personal experience with thought stoppers about 20 plus years ago. I was leading a program and had a large staff, and I had a consultant come in because our leadership team was struggling a little bit. We were exhausted, we were frustrated, why isn't our team performing to the level that we need them to perform at, and fatigued, frustrated, just kind of missing the mark in some ways. So a consultant came in to work with the leadership team, and she spoke with each of us individually, and then she gave us all what she called thought stopper bracelets. And at the time, I had not heard the term thought stoppers. I didn't know what the purpose was. It was a red bracelet that we wore around our wrist, and we were required to wear them from the start of the workday to the end of the workday and kind of journal, write down our experiences with the thought stoppers. Every time we had a negative reaction from one of the domains, we either had a negative thought about a project, a person, an action. We felt negative, anxious, stomach ache, frustration, fatigue, anger. We engaged in negative self-talk. Anytime any one of those things happened, then we had to snap the thought stopper. Basically, it was a rubber band that was fancy with the word thought stopper on it. We had to snap this, and we had to wear it all day. And I will tell you, by the end of the day, as I became more aware of what was happening in these domains, right, internally, I became more aware of how I was projecting that externally. And I had to keep snapping this thought stopper bracelet. And what I found was, by the end of the day, my wrist was red and it was sore. And I didn't realize before how often my inner thoughts, my inner state of being, negatively impacted how I was, putting myself out there to my team, my colleagues, my coworkers. I didn't realize how one was impacting the other and negatively impacting the other. Sometimes folks would come in, I already knew I wasn't feeling good about it, so I'd turn towards the computer and have a conversation, which we know not only is it unprofessional, it's disrespectful, and it's not productive, right? Or I'd sit there and I'd barely listen because I just had too much else going on here. Or I'd be very short, maybe rush somebody off a little bit, maybe be a little bit more curt because I knew I had a timeline or a deadline to meet. So the thought stopper was a physical way to stop me in my tracks, to make me recalibrate how I was, impacting what was happening around me, and to refocus, and then to re-engage. And that helped me to manage and acknowledge what was happening in one of those 4 domains so I could be a more productive and effective and empathetic leader. So you may not need a thought stopper bracelet or rubber band to stop yourself, but even a thought stopper jar where you collect coins every time you feel yourself going through this, something tangible. Maybe it's a journal that every time you're experiencing something in one of these 4 domains and it's impacting how you are being perceived in the world or how you are impacting the world. And when I say world, I mean your workspace, your work team, your colleague your collegial interactions. You're writing it down. Some people use journals. But it is a way to help you to be self-aware, to be proactive about what's happening, and then to show up in the world as a more effective, responsive, empathetic leader. Self-awareness helps us to be more proactive, it helps us to boost our acceptance, and it encourages positive self-confidence and development. Thank you all so much for joining me today as we talked about self-awareness and how it's a critical leadership competency. I hope you will join me next week as we cover another effective leadership strategy and join right here on this very channel. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.